Welcome to Austria. This video offers all the information you'll need in order to work as a live-in caregiver in Austria. You'll find out details about the available contract types and about your labor rights and responsibility as a live-in care professional. Let's address them one by one. Live-in care is an essential part of the Austrian healthcare system, and it rests on the fundamental care triangle: client, person cared for; care worker; placement agency. In theory, the client, the care worker, and the placement agency should be equal partners in the exchange of services. However, in reality, the care workers often find themselves in the weakest bargaining position and often end up in a relationship of subordination to his or her other collaborators, the placement agencies or the clients. I want to work as a caregiver in Austria. What do I need to know? The main legislation overseeing and regulating work in this industry is the Hausbetreuungsgesetz, HBG. It allows you to provide care services either as an independent entrepreneurial activity through what is called a Gewerbe or through a regular employment contract, Angestellte. The most common form of contracting for live-in care workers in Austria at the moment is as an independent entrepreneurial activity, or what we in the industry refer to as self-employed or as a firm. Currently, there are around 60,000 independent care workers in Austria. Half of them come from Romania, and about a third of them come from Slovakia. Additionally, care workers also come from other Eastern European countries such as Croatia, Hungary, Bulgaria, Poland, the Czech Republic, Slovenia, or Latvia. Work in this industry is almost entirely done by migrant workers, and most care workers are women. I want to work as an independent live-in care worker, or in German as a selbstständige 24-Stunden-Personenbetreuerin. Independent live-in care workers automatically become members of the Austrian Chamber of Commerce, WKO. If you choose this type of contract, you become solely responsible for your firm's professional activity, regardless of any secondary agreements with the placement agency or the person you care for. What are your rights as an independent care worker? You have the right to choose your own clients and partners and to independently negotiate your working conditions, your job description, your hours, your pay, and your transportation service between Austria and your home country. It's important to understand you are not an employee of the placement agency, and the placement agency is not your employer. You and the agency become collaborators. You have the right to request a bilingual contract if you don't speak German well enough. You have the right to contract a placement agency to find you a job. In this case, you will negotiate and sign a collaboration contract that is legally binding with the placement agency. You have the right to find your own live-in caregiving staff to replace you at the workplace in case you cannot provide the services for yourself. People with children are entitled to family allowances. Your professional interests are represented by the Austrian Chamber of Commerce, WKO. You are entitled through your social and health insurance to health and pension benefits or benefits in case of accidents. What are my obligations as an independent live-in care worker? You are required to independently pay your contributions to the health and social insurance, SVS, from your gross fee. If you authorize the placement agency, the person being cared for, or their relatives to pay the SVS contribution on your behalf, you are required to check that the payments have been made accordingly. If you exceed the annual income of 11,000 euros, you will pay income tax. You are required to inform the revenue authorities, Finanzamt, about your professional activity through the annual income tax return. You are required to fulfill the contracts you have signed with your collaborators. You are required to document the professional activity you carry out. You are required to pay a membership fee to the Austrian Chamber of Commerce, WKO. You are required to ensure the safety and comfort of the person being cared for as long as they benefit from your live-in care services. What are the steps I need to take to provide care as an independent care worker? Step 1. Registering your residency. If you do not reside permanently in Austria, you will need to register your secondary residence, in German Nebenwohnsitz. The common practice is to register the client's address as your secondary residence. You will obtain the corresponding paperwork, Meldezettel, from the competent state authorities, Gemeindeamt, Magistrat, or Vienna Magistratische Bezirksamt. Step 2. Registering as an independent live-in care worker. In other words, registering your firm providing care services, a Gewerbelicense, at the competent state authorities, Bezirkshauptmannschaft, Magistrat. Step 3. Managing your firm's professional activity. Step 4. If you interrupt the activity of your firm for a limited period of time, you will need to inform the Austrian Chamber of Commerce, WKO. It's important to be aware that in this case, your health and social insurance will also be automatically suspended. Step 5. If you want to stop your professional live-in care activity, you will need to officially close your business. You can do this through the local authorities, Bezirkshauptmannschaft or Magistrat. I want to work with a regular employment contract. If you choose to work with an employment contract as an employee in the live-in care industry, your employer will be either the person being cared for, the client, or their relatives, or a social support organization such as Caritas, Volkshilfe, Hilfswerk, or the Diakonie. As an employee, you are entitled to workplace protection to the Austrian Labor Code. Your working conditions are regulated through a contract of employment, and care workers automatically become members of the Austrian Chamber of Labor, in German Arbeiterkammer. What are my rights as an employed care worker? Your employer will register you with the Social Insurance House, ÖGK, and pay all your social and health insurance contributions. Your employer will manage a separate salary account for you and will also pay your income tax, as well as all auxiliary salary costs. You will always receive only your net salary. When you start your employment, your employer is required to provide you with a job description listing all your rights and responsibilities. You have the right to request a bilingual contract if you do not speak German well enough. You are entitled to the continued payment of wages and to sick leave. You are entitled to paid vacation. Your work hours are regulated according to the employment contract or to the collective bargaining contract. You are entitled to unemployment benefits if your main residency is in Austria. You are entitled to the 13th and 14th annual salary special payments as agreed in the collective agreement, in the company negotiated agreement, or in the employment contract. You are entitled to family allowances. You have the right to join trade unions and benefit from trade union protection in the workplace. What are my obligations as an employed caregiver? You are required to follow all clauses stipulated in your employment contract. You are required to comply with the policies of the employer regarding the working hours and perform your duties as assigned. You are required to provide safety and comfort for the client for as long as they benefit from your live-in care services. Whichever type of contracting model you choose to work with, Don't forget, always document your professional activity. Make a note of your working hours and shifts, important activities undertaken with the person being cared for, medical appointments, on the job evaluations, etc., or any meetings with your collaborators. Monitor and track the health condition of the person being cared for. Notify your collaborators and qualified medical staff immediately if you notice any visible changes in your patient's health. A well-informed caregiver is a protected caregiver. Find out more about your rights in the Austrian Living Care here, www.ig24.at. Do you need help? Contact us. Kontakt@ig24.at.